And we've also created resources on ultimatemusictheory.com. If you go there and click on free resources, all of the videos and everything that goes with our course materials are there for students. So when you're studying the book on music history and you want to learn about Bach or Beethoven, or you want something else, you can just click on that level if you're in level 5 or 6, whatever it might be. And all the videos are there that go with the workbook.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
You've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Glory, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to learn about you and your business. Before we talk about your business, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and just, who you are and how you got here?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Glory St.Germain. I am the CEO and founder of Ultimate Music Theory. And I started off as a young 16-year-old music teacher. Didn't really know anything about teaching music theory, and was kind of broke like every other music educator at that time, working for hours and hours. And I discovered that perhaps I should up my education. And through learning that music theory was kind of complicated, I thought maybe there's a better way. So I landed up becoming a publisher, and I'm sure we'll talk about that road. I've worn a lot of hats in my business. I ran a video production company for 15 years, and now we're a global company, with online courses and workbooks. And the story continues. So we're here to have some fun.
So one more time, the name of the business?
Ultimate Music Theory.
Ultimate Music Theory. And if somebody wanted to check that out, how would they find that online?
Yep, ultimatemusictheory.com.
Wonderful. So in all intents and purposes, you teach music theory to music educators.
Yes. So I started as a music teacher and realized that it was really complicated to teach music theory. So I've written over 50 books in music theory education. I'm an international best-selling author. In fact, I had 5 international bestsellers last year in 2021 with The Power of Why Musicians, connecting musicians from around the world. It's an anthology series in how we communicate more effectively through composing and writing music and teaching and the rest of it. And as I was writing my books, I realized that I wasn't the only one that didn't know how to teach music theory. So I created an online course, our Ultimate Music Theory certification course for music teachers and elite educator program, so that they too could turn their business into a 6-figure business. And, Ken, you and I are here to inspire people to say, listen, if I can be a little music, little piano teacher from Winnipeg, Canada, turning my business into a 6-figure business, being a music teacher, so can you. And we really share that in our program with teachers from around the world. And I'm passionate about doing that because it's fun to help other people.
Right. So, and we talked a little bit about before the show, and just so that the audience knows who all this is, your program is for. Can I take the course just because if I want to know more about music theory? Like
Yes.
if I wanted to just be a musician, is your course, or do you have books for that as well?
Yes, we do. So the Ultimate Music Theory program is a program that is written for the end user, which is the musician. And our Ultimate Music Theory certification course is for teachers who would like to learn how to teach music theory more effectively. So our books are available on Amazon. They're available on bookdepository.com. So around the world, free shipping through bookdepository.com. Just in the search, you'll type in Glory St.Germain and you'll see all 60 books. Actually, I think we're up to 60 books now.
Wow.
And so you're a musician, Ken, and you say, you know what?
Well, I'm not.
But
We'll make believe.
But
Yes.
maybe you will be. We're not done.
Okay.
Well, and here's the thing, Ken, honestly, very often, and we have musicians of all ages that have said, I've always wanted to learn a little more about music theory. And there's a lot of choir conductors. There's a lot of music schools that are using our music theory products as well. So it's just really there to help musicians have a better understanding of the language, because, you and I talked a little while ago, just even about Las Vegas, which is of course the entertainment capital of the world. And let me tell you this, when those musicians walk into a gig and they're handed a chord chart, or even into the recording studio, you have to know the language of music theory. And it is the essential language, no matter whether you play guitar or piano or you're a vocalist. So we provide you with that so that you can, elevate yourself as a musician, and it helps you be more creative too, because
Right.
if you don't know, how to take your music to the next step, your creativity is limited. It's kind of like giving you 3 colors of crayons, Ken, and saying, color me a picture. Well, if I could just give you 8 crayons, or maybe the whole palette, your artwork becomes more colorful, and music
Right.
is art.
Yes, it absolutely is. So this is for anybody in the music industry needs to know music theory. Writers,
Yes.
singers,
Yes.
musical instruments, beatboxers, rappers, everybody, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I mean,
if you could say a sentence on what music theory is there a sentence, or is it bigger than
yes.
that?
No, there is
Okay.
a sentence. Music theory is the language that communicates the written and auditory parts of music into sound. So music theory is rhythm. So whether it's in 4/4 time or 3/4 time or whatever time signatures, it's articulation. Is it staccato? Is it legato? Is it tempo? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is there harmony, or is it just melody? And all of those elements are what creates the language of music theory. So if I was to hand you a score or a music book, and if you couldn't read that, then there's no way that you could express that. Even if you have a music teacher or a musician who says, oh, I don't need music theory, I play by ear. I always challenge them, Ken, to say, really, well, if you play by ear, do you understand rhythm? And they say, well, yes, it's the beat. Oh, and do you understand volume? And they go, well, yeah, it's kind of loud, kind of soft. I said, well, then you know music theory. So music theory is the universal language of music. And what's cool is that, as I mentioned to you, Ken, we have our ultimate music theory elite educators from around the world. So whether they're in Singapore, whether they're in France, whatever country they're in, and our books are also used in teaching in different languages, but it's all music theory. And that language is universal, no matter what country you are in the entire world.
Right. Wonderful. I love it. It's not a path for me, but I can see it for a path for a lot of people, right? That are out there. And if you want to get into teaching music, you have a certificate program?
Yes. And you're absolutely right, Ken, in that if you are a music teacher, chances are, if most music teachers, we're almost self-taught, right? There isn't really a school where you say you can go here and here's how you learn how to be a music theory teacher,
Right.
until now, which is why we created the Ultimate Music Theory Certification course for teachers, and they can learn all about it if they go to join UMT.com. They'll get all the information, and they can even book a free strategy call with me. I'm happy to talk them, through how the program works and if it's a fit for them. But what I found was that as I was on tour, promoting my books in across North America, doing a lot of traveling and speaking on stages at teachers' conferences, that music teachers were feeling a little self-conscious about teaching the language of music theory. We know basis of it. So even though, yes, I have a music degree, but no one ever taught me how to teach music theory. I'm also an NLP practitioner. So NLP is Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And neuro is how we think, linguistic is how we speak, and programming is how we get the results that we get. And as an NLP practitioner, I wanted to make sure to include that in our certification course, because here's the thing, Ken, and I know that you work a lot and you do a lot of interviews. You're working with a lot of, people that are running corporations, but no matter who we are either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic primarily. And as a music teacher, you need to learn how to teach in all 3 modalities. And here's a little tip. As a young child, you have a predominant learning style. You're either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. That's the strongest. But as you get a little older, then you can kind of have a secondary learning style as well. And as I was going through my training, I thought, I'm kinesthetic. I'm going to bet you $100, Ken, right now. Let's go to Vegas and do the bet.
Right.
Turns out after I completed my certification, I was a visual learner big time. And when I am teaching, I'm always very aware of using all three languages, all three modalities,
Right.
because it's how you learn faster. And so that's why I've created this program for teachers, so they don't have to feel, lack of confidence, and also how to make some money in their business. But wait, there's more.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of students in my life, and I always tell them we learn, we teach, and then we do. Right.
Yes.
And that's kind of how I get all of those things down. So I teach them, they teach somebody else, and then we can go do it. I'm not confident that they understand it unless they can really show another person
100%.
that that's what they're doing. So
Yeah.
I like that you're doing all three of those approaches, right? You're doing audio, visual, and they're doing the work, right? So
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that is the best way to learn. I've started recently, this is a neat little hack, is if I'm really want to know a book, I will listen to it and read it at the same time. So I'll have the Audible running and I'll be following along with it at the same time. And I find that my comprehension of that book goes through the roof versus just listening to it or just reading it. So
Yeah, it's completely brilliant, Ken. As a matter of fact, when I'm doing my presentations, I often ask people, do you know your learning style? Do you know if you're visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? And some of them say, I think I'm visual, like they don't really know. But and then I'll ask them, how am I presenting my masterclass today? And some of them will say, oh, you're visual. Some will say auditory, some will say kinesthetic. And then I'll say, well, here's the truth. I'm presenting in VAC. So VAC is visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, because visually, you see me talking to you, right? Auditory, you can hear me speaking. And kinesthetic is that you are writing things down, because I've created a workbook for you. I've asked you to take notes. For those of you that are listening, if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. So visual learners learn through seeing. They like charts and graphs, right? That's how they learn best. Right. Auditory learners like to hear things, but they also like to verbalize. So Ken, when you're teaching, you're coaching, and you say to them, now I want you, and I'm not a, boxer, but I know you are. And if you're training and you say, now, you want to go left, 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 right. And then you may hear them underneath their breath say left, 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 right, left, 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 right. And so that's an auditory learner. They often repeat what you've said. And a kinesthetic learner is often fidgety, right? They just can't sit still. And so when you are presenting and teaching in all these three modalities, you actually learn 30 to 40% more when you write things down. So I highly recommend that when you are learning and engaging that, make sure that you're writing things down, because just by listening or just by watching, we don't learn as well as if we engage in all three and always write things down. So that's the tip of the day.
All right. And you said you're an NPL practitioner?
NLP.
Neuro-Linguistic Practitioner.
Correct. Yeah. Neuro-Linguistic Programming is NLP. Yes. And when you go through the NLP training, you learn about learning styles, you learn about modalities, you learn about submodalities, you learn to develop communication skills. So when we're communicating, and you and I are chatting right now, and so there's actually 3 levels of communication, and our physiology is the number one way of communicating. And even when, and you're an educator, you're a coach as well, Ken, as I am, as soon as you see someone walking into the room, you can tell by their physiology already, there's trouble. They're not interested, whatever that might be. And they haven't even said anything yet. So your physiology is 55% of communication. When you and I met today, I was smiling. I'm happy to be here. I was so excited and so honored to meet you, and, enjoyed, chatting with your mom and your family that way. And so I was excited to be here, and you could recognize that. Yes. When we talk about our physiology, that's really where we communicate mostly. The next one is tonality. We can tell how someone is just by how the volume of their speaking, right? And finally, the words are only 7%. Only 7%. So it depends. I could say, hey, Ken, how you doing? And you'd say, oh, she's happy to see. Or I could say, hey, Ken, how you doing? And even I've said the same words, right?
Right.
So, or I could put physiology in it and then it changes everything. So being a music teacher, you have to know this, because here's the thing, Ken, and it's very similar in your industry, is as a music teacher, you very often have that child, you might start teaching them when they're 3 years old, and you might have them for 20 years until they graduate and go off to college or do whatever they do. Unlike school teachers who often have, 1 year they teach grade 6, and then the next year they have a new group of grade 6.
Right.
But with music teachers, we very often have those students for years and years. If you're an effective educator, you can maintain your student base, right? So, and then there's also teaching groups, and that's another conversation that we'll have as well. That's where you actually get to make the money, is when you learn how to take it to the next level, as I say.
Group training is definitely, and on-demand group training is the bee's knees, right? Whenever they can just buy it and then download it and they get the training, that's a business model that is wildly scalable.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit before we get into that. I want to talk about the neuro-linguistics. I'm been reading a little bit about that lately, and the neural pathways and all that fun stuff, right? And exercising those in new, unique ways. But 60 books under your belt.
Yeah.
You wrote them all? Did you employ because this is, if you're going to write a book, right? So just to give the audience an idea, if you've looked into it, you can write a book for free and publish it yourself with Amazon for, it'd take about an hour to learn how to do it on Amazon by yourself, right? If you really wanted to learn how to do it. Or you can spend all the way to $100,000 pretty easy writing a book, right? You can get a ghostwriter and all these companies that'll do all this stuff for you. All 50 books, are you writing them yourselves? Do you have assistants doing that with you? Or tell us a little about the process of writing those books.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually just working on another book right now, which will be out either in December or January. So that's another book I'm writing. It'll be a big book. So when I first started, I started with just writing worksheets for my students because the materials that I was using weren't very effective. And I thought, well, if what I'm using isn't effective, then maybe I should create something that is effective. So I wrote my first 3 books, Ultimate Music Theory, Basic, Intermediate, and Advanced. Very proudly, had these books and had them printed. And then I started shopping them around to publishers. And everyone said, go away, little girl. Once you sell, books, then let me know. And I said, well,
Right.
That wasn't very kind. Then I met with a company who was going to help publishers. And I was really excited, Ken. I went in there, with my best suit jacket on and my 3 books. I was so proud. And I was looking for a grant to publish my books. And then they said, wow, these are great books. Who's the author? And I said, well, I am. And they said, oh, sorry, if you're the author, then, we don't do self-publishing, go away. So I said a few things under my breath. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to do this myself. There's a song I'm sure you've heard, Uptown Funk, Don't Believe Me, Just Watch.
Yes.
And that's my theme song. I dance to it. I love that song. And I took ownership of that and I became my own publisher. So Glory Publishing is the name of my publishing company. And I published my first 3 books. And then I completed the set and I wrote 6 books. And then I received an email from Sheila McKibben-Uren, who had bought my books and said, oh my gosh, I love your books. If you ever need an editor, let me know. And I said, funny you should say that. I desperately need an editor. So Sheila McKibben came on board and we did all the answer books and so on. And then a couple of years ago, Sheila and I wrote 20 books in 1 year. And I won't forget this, Ken. It was December the 23rd when I hit publish on that 20th book that we wrote that year. And, obviously since then we've done many more books, but it's a lot of work. We do all of our own. There's a lot of no sleeping nights when you're writing that much.
That's a book every 2 weeks.
What's that?
That's a book every 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. It's a lot of research, and there's a lot of research because our books are also music history. well, you can't just make this stuff up. You've got to research this. But because of my research, I got to connect with, people like Mercedes, who is Duke Ellington's daughter. And I got to speak with her in New York. And I was like honored. I got to do an interview with her. So I just reached out. I spoke to people in India when we were talking about this music of the sitar. And as a researcher, that gets me so excited, right?
I've not heard the word centaur in probably 2 decades.
Yes. Yes. And so it's very interesting. And we've also created resources on ultimatemusictheory.com. If you go there and click on free resources, all of the videos and everything that goes with our course materials are there for students. So when you're studying the book on music history and you want to learn about Bach or Beethoven, or you want something else, you can just click on that level if you're in level 5 or 6, whatever it might be. And all the videos are there that go with the workbook. And we also created the Ultimate Music Theory app, and that also correlates to the workbook. So it's a very, very complete program. And I do have a team now. We have a team of 7, and I love my team. We've been together for a long time. Joanne Barker is our games designer. So we also have, because it's about gamification too. So often when you think, if you talk to a music teacher, Ken, they will say, oh, music theory, and kind of roll their eyes because their students do as well. But when you come into our program and you go, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Gamification, you're doing the Ultimate Music Theory app, you're playing games, you're joining our membership. As I said, we have our team, which is around the world, and I love them, and they've created all of these resources in our membership as well. So it's pretty fun.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to jump into some assumptions here, which is dangerous ground for anybody. But I just want to dive deep into the 20 books in a year. 2 books a week on average, roughly, right? Some Christmas holidays and stuff fall in there. So that's a tough flow. I'm assuming that to do that, you have to be in what we call the flow state to get that much work done that amount of time.
Oh, 100%. And to be honest, Ken, it was 2020 lockdown. I wasn't going anywhere. I basically locked myself in a room in the basement. I came up for air because my husband would order food and say, come eat. There was many nights when I didn't sleep. I would just write all night long and then just keep going. And Einstein said, while others sleep is when I write. And I remember reading that and I thought, oh, okay, so I'm not the only one who keeps working and writing all night, but it was my obsession, and we had a deadline. And I will give you something else that I shared with you. I'm a visual learner, right? So when I decided we were going to write the 20 books, and my partner, Sheila, and I, we write together. And the first thing I did is I created the covers of the books. And because when you see the cover, I'm going to grab this little guy here. So when you see the cover, what we did is I had all of the covers printed, and in my basement on the wall, and I have a couple of offices down there, I took all the covers from the back, and I put every single cover on the wall. And as I wrote and finished one book, check. And then I would carry, and then the next book, check. And then the next, and it's what kept me going. So when you really want to accomplish something, you need to have a vision board. And we talk about this inside our Ultimate Music Theory Certification and Elite Educator program, is if you want to be successful in business, you need to have a vision board. You need to be open to learning, to be coachable, to put your team together so you can take little things off of your plate. I wouldn't have been able to write all these books, number one, if I didn't have my writing partner, Sheila, but also if I didn't have my team who was taking care of emails and, doing all the rest of them, my shipping department, they are the ones that, ship things out and fulfillment. So yeah. And now I'm back to writing again. So I block off time. I write usually 2 days a week, and I usually block off at least 8 to 10 hours, 100% writing, no phone, no nothing, just focus.
Wonderful. So I like what you did with the pictures on the wall. I think, I don't know who it was. And if I remember, I'll put it in here. Commitment or creativity follows commitment.
Yes.
Right? Without the commitment, you're not going to get to that creativity spot. And I think as you start to get into how to level up and how to really excel in business and how to get to the right mindset and things like that, you'll start hearing terms like, keeping your energy, your broadcasting energy to a certain level, and being in this
Yes.
flow state, and having a receiving ability to receive energy, all of those things. For me, it's really hard to get into those states. And when I'm in there for a long period of time, it gets a little scary, right? So how do you, stay in that space and also keep your sense of self, I guess, is
Yes.
because 8 hours in a flow state is a long time. I'm not 3 days is kind of my max, and that's exhausting. I mean, it takes a couple days to recover from something like that. So you've obviously got some tricks and tips on how to get into that and how to exit that quickly,
Yes.
which is, and this is totally selfish to me asking you because I don't have that ability yet. It takes me a long time to get there, and it takes me a long time to get out. It gets a little scary during the process.
Yeah, so I'll give you one little tip about going into flow state. So I do a couple things. One, I listen to really pump up music like Uptown Funk and something that'll just put me in mindset, like, don't believe me, just watch. And then I'm like strong. The
Right?
second thing that I do when I'm writing is I actually go onto YouTube. I have a couple of favorites and I listen to music that is focus. It's called focus music. And it's very quiet and it's just in the background. And to be
Like
honest, if you
meditation
ask,
music.
it's not meditation, it's music for studying. It's
Okay.
called focus music. If you just go on YouTube and put in focus music, you'll see it. And I put it really low. So basically when I go into the zone, but it keeps me there. And I usually have a mission. When I'm writing my book right now, I have a goal of doing 5,000 words, within 5 to 7 to maybe 10,000 words per weekend. That's my goal. So when I'm writing, and in our theory books, there's finale. I'm also write music. So I'm a composer. So I have to write music and then I have to put it into our program and make sure everything is lined up properly. And it's a lot of work and you don't learn it in a day. But as you said, here's one of my quotes. Here's a Glory St.Germain quote for you. Goal setting with accountability and an execution strategy is the greatest motivation for achievement. When you set a goal and you have an accountability partner and you have a strategy for execution, that's the greatest motivation for achieving that goal. Because if you set a goal, many of us do, oh, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Okay, great. But you don't have anybody to be accountable for. Well, maybe you do now. You got a friend, they're going to do it with you. Okay, great. But there's no strategy.
Right.
You just both want to be on a diet together and you're going to go to the gym, maybe not. So it is a process and it's very disciplined. And I think you need a desire, but it needs to be a burning desire.
Yes.
And then you need to have dedication. And then the ultimate step is that determination. And once you have that, it's how you take your dream to your destiny. And there's no other way to get there. And
Right.
my journey is not done yet, but each time I have a dream, I go through that desire, I go through that determination, and I take it all the way to the destiny and go, okay, next. But here's the thing too, I think you always need to have a dream. You always need to have a goal, because if you set a goal, I've run a marathon, I set that goal, and then I went, okay, well, now what are you going to do? Let's set another goal. Maybe you want to,
Right.
travel or whatever it might be. You got to have a goal. Otherwise life is kind of boring. So that's my thing anyway.
I once had a sales rep make this statement to me. He goes, so it's not about what I've done for the company. It's about what I've done for the company lately. And
Yes.
And I think that you should look at yourself that way. You should not look at yourself like, hey, what have you done for yourself? It's what have you done for yourself lately, right?
Yeah.
To grow yourself. And I think that's an important mindset to stay in. Like, what am I doing to better myself today? I set a goal 2 years ago. I hit that goal a year later, but I didn't set another goal for myself. And that's kind of sad to just wander in this universe with no intention.
So right. And I mean, we've done obviously over $1 million in our book sales and everything else. And when I see, those numbers, and I'm thrilled, but it's only about what am I doing to generate revenue into my business today? What
Right.
action steps am I doing? It's not about, oh, you made $1 million, yay you. No, it's about what am I doing to grow my business today? And one of the things that we teach inside our Elite Educator program is how to generate money into your business as a teacher, because most of the times as an educator, you're making $50 an hour. So you're limited, right? This is all you're going to make. So
Right.
inside the program, and what happened, I'll tell you a little story. So here's what happened to me. My husband is an entertainer, and he was the breadwinner in the family. And he does big shows, performing to 20,000 people, cheering, fans, selling his CDs. This is back in the day of CDs,
Right.
selling his CDs and touring. Well, my husband got sick, and he landed up in the hospital. And his gigs went from making the big bucks and being the breadwinner to zero.
Right.
And I sat here and cried. I had 2 young children that I, needed my attention. I was teaching as many hours as I possibly could. And my husband's in the hospital and I can't pay the bills. And now what am I going to do? So I sat here and I thought, well, what can I do? What if I took my theory students, who I keep saying the same thing over and over again, every single student that walks in the door, what if I taught them in a group? I could charge a little bit less money for the group class and I'd be making more money. So I went from making $50 an hour to making $270 an hour. That's 5 times more revenue. I grew my business from broke, credit card debt, being overdrawn, to having a 6-figure business, just being a music teacher. So is it possible? Hell yes, I've done it for years. And that's why I created the program to show music teachers, can I actually run a 6-figure business, just me all by myself? I'm like, yes, you can. And
you
again,
can probably do it part-time.
Absolutely, you can do it part-time. Absolutely. And I think one of the things too, Ken, is that so often we're like, well, how do I find students? How do I put marketing materials together? Just because you're a music teacher doesn't mean you know anything about marketing.
Right.
And so that's why we put business in a box together. Here's the Elite Educator program. Here's what you're going to invest in joining the program. And here's what you're going to make. So it's kind of a no-brainer. It's like, yeah, where do I sign up? Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it is. I'm working on a couple projects that are very similar to that as we speak. It's people want to learn how to scale, and I
Yes.
think this goes back to the old saying: is if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. If you just
Yes.
focus on the thing that you love, the money will find you somehow, right? And you've done that in a spectacular way. I mean, 60 books. I wouldn't recommend anybody to go down the path of 20 books or try to write 20 books in a year. That is,
Well,
it's not very frequently that I'm looking at somebody else scratching my head going, man, that's a lot. Because most of the time people are looking at me and going, you do 200 episodes a year of Clicks and Bricks? Yeah, I do. But so 20 books in a month or in a year is a lot in my mind.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot of books, but I think too, we talked about the visualization. When I had a desire, everything starts off with a dream. I had a dream that I wanted to do a TED Talk. I love TED Talks. I'm passionate about it. So I had this desire, right? This dream. And then the desire became a burning desire. So, I'm visual. So the first thing I did is I bought a red TEDx rug and I put it right here in my studio and I stood on it. I just stood on it, Ken, just pretending that I would be doing this TED Talk. And then I thought, okay, well, now it's a burning desire. What's going to be the next step? The next step is dedication. So I got myself a coach, started working with a coach. And so I was preparing and writing this TED Talk with it wasn't going anywhere. I was just like writing it. And, in my mind, I'm like, someday this is going to happen. So it went from desire to dedication. And then, Ken, I hit determination. And that's when I started saying, where can I do this TED Talk? It's ready. It's worthy. And finally, the destiny happened. I did one of my first TED Talks did last year. And the second TED Talk I did was this year. It actually was released in January. And will I do a third one? Absolutely. Why? Because now I know I can, right?
Right.
So when you take that step-by-step process, and for those of you that are watching or listening, if you're interested, you can just go to YouTube and type in TEDx Talk and Glory St.Germain, and you'll see both of them pop up. And I'm really proud of them. And as you watch those TED Talks, you're going to feel my pain as what I went through in overcoming the overwhelm in my life, what I had to go through. and also the 3 things that I learned about teaching students. And I did these, and it comes from a very vulnerable place, Ken. I remember as I was rehearsing, because, TEDx talks are memorized, and it was really internal. And I felt that pain even as I was sharing my story. I was just like, oh, I remember putting up my hand, and I really literally, if you watch it, you'll see me kind of pushing my own elbow up, because I was so embarrassed. I didn't feel worthy. I had imposter syndrome. I thought, who do you think you are? You don't know anything. And it was painful to go and remember this journey. But when you share your story, you help others, because they realize if you can do it, they can do it too. And it is, as they say, it's an idea worth spreading. And I'm grateful to TEDx for, allowing me the opportunity to share my story and to help other music teachers now, or just people in general, to go, oh, I think I can implement that. So, yeah.
That's it for today's show, folks. If you'd like to join my text line community, the number is 314-370-2871. All you have to do to join that text line is send me any question about business or technology. I'll do all the research, and I'll give you an absolutely free, totally unbiased answer. Get to work.